Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here with us. It's been a couple weeks, but we're back in the saddle. Brian, I'm going to mute you for 1 second here so we don't get the wicked feedback. But yeah, Football 102. If you've got your Bills gear on, show it. If you want, we're recording this session and I'll try to post it on our website at a later date. So if there's anyone you know that really wants to learn about football and isn't here with us today, they can check it out later on. My name's Katie Earle. I know most of you because you've been on the classes a lot, and we're just so appreciative of the time you spend with us and your participation. So Ryan and I both work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services. And first, we'll just quickly thank our sponsors, which is our department, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans for everything they do. And as we go through Ryan's presentation, if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat. And at the end, if you have really specific questions or if you want clarification, you can raise your hand, which I see somebody already did, so I'll follow up on that in a second, and then we can have that dialogue. So Ryan Gadzo currently serves as the research analyst for Erie County Department of Senior Services. He has both a bachelor's and master's degree from Buffalo State College in political science and public administration, respectively. Ryan is a fantasy sports enthusiast and Bills season ticket holder for over 5 years. Are you going to the game? Who knows? He will combine his football knowledge and love of analysis in this engaging presentation. Ryan, the floor, or should I say the field, is yours. Just got to unmute.
Well, thank you, Miss Earle. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It is Wild Card Weekend Eve, so we are just a little bit over 24 hours away from our boys taking the field. So I want to say thank you all for attending today. For any of you that haven't seen me in the past, sometimes I do speak very quickly. If you need me to repeat something or if you have a question on something I'm going over, please feel free to throw it in the chat like Katie said, or raise your hand and you can. I'm free to answer whatever you like. If you do have any questions about anything in the presentation or not in the presentation, please let me know. But yes, I do play fantasy football. I am a Bill season ticket holder. No, I didn't get tickets. We were 392 people short. So no season ticket or no tickets to the game, but it's okay. So today we're going to go over some stuff that talks about positions along the offensive line, defensive line, some different concepts, things like that. Any of you who've attended Teresa Wider's 101 class probably got a good base of knowledge. This is just a next step up, talking about some things that'll be going on that you might see on the field this weekend. Also, if you do have a question pertaining to a concept I'm talking about, I could let you know what the Bills players that we do have currently, how they're doing it from their positions respectively. So without further ado, let's kick this one off. All right, so at the beginning of each game, we have the coin flip. The coin flip decides who has possession. The visiting team's captains during the flip are in charge of calling the toss, which in that case, they will say heads or tails. The team who wins the coin toss is able to choose whether they would like to start with the ball in the first half, kick the ball off in the second half, or this new trend that you see a lot around the league is will defer to the second half. When that team defers to the second half, that allows that team to choose whether they want to kick the ball off to start the second half and play defense or receive the ball at the second half to play offense. So that's kind of a new concept that a lot of teams have been using lately when they win that coin toss, mostly so that depending on what's going on in the game situationally, at the start of the second half, they can choose whether to kick or receive that ball. Kickoff. So at the start of every game and after every score, we have our kickoff. What happened last week when the ref did not hear Josh Allen correctly? It depends on what play you're talking about specifically. Yeah, so I'm just going to on the coin toss. So yeah, so depending on what happened there, yeah, because I also was shocked that they started off with the ball because they usually like to defer to the second half. So it could have been that Josh misspoke, Or I actually didn't watch the coin toss last week, so I apologize. I was doing some dishes before the game started. So, but I know that Josh for a few weeks was not doing very good at the start of the season with his coin toss calls. So I knew that but he might have just heard wrong or misspoke. So I am unsure about that. Sorry, I do not have a better answer on that question. So at the start of each game and after every score, there is a kickoff. A new rule that started a few years ago, especially after there was the big outpouring of the lawsuit with the CTE, which is the traumatic head trauma that a lot of players were playing. Because you used to be able to kind of stack one side of the field or not. So now the way it has to, the teams have to align with 5 players on either side of the kicker, and they're no longer allowed start before the ball is. Once again, this is to make sure that they are slowing down the speed of those collisions during that kick. An onside kick attempt is when a team may be down a score or they're just trying to regain possession of the ball. The team who is not kicking the ball puts what they call their hands team out. So the hands team are pretty much a team that are specialized on that onside kick, who are your hands guys, your wide receivers, your tight ends, your cornerbacks, safeties, and your running backs are usually on the hands team because they're the people who usually handle the ball. And then lastly, if there is a safety, the team who was tackled in their own end zone will punt the ball to the team whose opposing player tackled them in the end zone. So they also score 2 points due to that play. Next, we're going to talk about the offensive line. So the offensive line consists of 5 positions. You have the left tackle, your left guard, your center, your right guard, and your right tackle. I'm going to start from left to right because that's how we read. So the left tackle, this position is most crucial for right-handed quarterbacks. Because when a right-handed quarterback such as Josh Allen is in the pocket, his back is to the left side of the field, everything that's from the center to the left. So in this case, Dion Dawkins, our left tackle, is the most crucial person in our passing game. The reason being is because if an edge rusher or a blitzer comes off that side and Josh does not know he's coming, as you see the Bills, when we tackle the opposing quarterback, you see the defensive come down with, they call it a tomahawk chop on the arm of the quarterback that has the ball in the hand, hoping to cause a fumble. The left guard is positioned between the left tackle and the center. Main job is blocking the defensive tackle or linebackers who are blitzing in the passing game. In the running game, your guard, your center, and your guards and center are asked to what they call pull in order to lead block for the running back, seal the edge, and to make sure that nothing, so that running back has a lane to run to the outside. And sometimes, depending on if it's the left guard or the right guard, you may sometimes see that person put their hand down, and then you'll see the ball is snapped. When that hand goes down by that left or right guard, that indicates to the center that the quarterback is ready for the ball, or that they're ready to snap. So on the next cadence, they know to snap the ball. So the center is very important as well, because the center is kind of like the quarterback of the offensive line. He's not only in charge of snapping the ball to the quarterback, but he helps set both pass and run blocking assignments on each and every play. So a lot of the times you'll see the center pointing guys out, and then you'll see the quarterback kind of, after they'll go through a cadence, maybe do a motion. Yes, seal the edge does mean, so especially when you're going outside of the tackle on a run play, sealing the edge means you're keeping all the defenders inside what they call that proverbial box, so that your running back has that edge to get to the sideline, which would be wide open. So sealing the edge is when you are making sure that no defensive player is either penetrating that wall that you're trying to put up to give that running back a lane. So yes, sealing the edge is making sure that anyone who's on the outside of the defenses is kept inside to stop them from stopping the play. So going back to the center helps set the blocking assignments, whether it's a pass block protection where they're trying to call out who the potential blitzers are, if it's a run blocking assignment where you're trying to say, especially with some defenses who play some exotic fronts where you might not have everyone down on the line of scrimmage, you might have a couple guys standing around and moving. That center kind of helps say, okay, I have him, you're blocking him, to make sure that their base assignments are blocked. Once you start pulling and stuff like that, you kind of have a block down scheme where if you're pulling your left guard and running right, all of your linemen are going to block to the left, and then that guard is going to help come seal the edge on that right-hand side to push everything in. Right guard, very similar job to the left guard. Main job is blocking the defensive tackle and linebackers that are blitzing. In the running game, like I said, they may be asked to pull and lead block for the running back. And then also right guard, left guard, depending on handedness, you may see that person pushing their hand down to let that center know to snap the ball. The right tackle. This position is most crucial for left-handed quarterbacks. So I believe Lamar Jackson is a left-handed quarterback. He plays for the Baltimore Ravens. So that right tackle for a left-handed quarterback, because they stand with their back to the right-hand side of the field, is protecting the blind side. Same thing. When you have a left-handed quarterback, that right side quarterback is what they call the weak side. Usually, of your two tackles, whoever's protecting the blind side is usually your stronger tackle. So what defenses will do is they'll want to attack that weak side tackle and guard to try to get Josh Allen or the quarterback to make decisions quicker because of that rush coming. So this is just a picture of the offensive line. You see you have your center, your two offensive guards, your two offensive tackles. This is an I formation set with a fullback, a running back, a tight end, and two wide receivers. The interesting thing that you will note is on the side of the formation in which you have the tight end, this wide receiver is set back. And the wide receiver where there's no tight end is up on the line of scrimmage. On every single play, there has to be 7 offensive players on the line of scrimmage. If there is not, that's when you'll see that illegal formation penalty. That you see it's the 5-yard penalty. Or if, say, this wide receiver was on the line as well, and you had 8 people on the line of scrimmage, you would also get that illegal formation penalty because you have too many people on the line of scrimmage. So when you see that, so that illegal formation is this. When you see that illegal shift, that's either you have 2 people in motion at one time or the person who's coming in motion. Say Isaiah McKenzie, how he likes to run across the line a few times a game, and they'll either hand it off to him. If Isaiah McKenzie was running and he turned up the field to go toward the line of scrimmage and they snapped the ball, they would throw a flag on that because it's an illegal shift. You cannot be moving toward the line of scrimmage while shifting and snap the ball. So that's that illegal shift. Or if 2 people are in motion, like if I believe they called it on the Bills one play where they had one guy coming off, one guy going on, and they threw it. It was a few weeks back. But yeah, so that's that illegal shift and that illegal formation penalty. So with pass protection, the key to pass protection is making sure that the pocket is maintained for the quarterback. So the pocket is the area from tackle to tackle. So a lot of the times you'll hear that, the pocket collapsed. That means that one of the linemen who formed the horseshoe of the pocket either got pushed in, that a assignment was blocked, that someone was beat on that play in their blocking assignment. That's also why when you hear them talking about intentional grounding, they always talk about, was he out of the pocket? Was he out of the pocket? Because if you're in the pocket and you throw the ball away and there's no receiver in the area, that's intentional grounding because you're just throwing the ball away to avoid a sack. You've seen Josh Allen has done this a lot more recently, starting a lot last year after the Patriots game, and I think he picked it up from Tom Brady. Tom Brady will do this nonstop because a lot of the times when he was playing for the Patriots, they would leave a running back in the backfield, James White, Deion Lewis, Sony Michel. But reason for that is they'd have him in the block and then if no one blitzed, he would be a release. But by having him in the backfield, that would allow Tom Brady, if the play was broken and there was nowhere to throw to downfield, to throw it down at that running back's feet as an incomplete pass, as they were attempting a screen pass. If there was no running back in the backfield and he did the same thing, it would be intentional grounding. So that's how that works. So like I said, the pocket is the area that spans from left tackle to right tackle at the start of each play. Because if you see down the center of the field, you have those two sets of hash marks. And depending on whether if a player is tackled between those hash marks, the ball is placed at the site of where they were tackled. If the player on that play is tackled outside of those hash marks, the referees put him on the hash mark closest to where that person was tackled, outside of those hash marks. So that's why you'll see a lot of the times with Tyler Bass, when they're trying to line him up for a field goal at the end of the half, I believe they like to put him on the left hash mark so he's able to kick it straight. And if it drifts right, he's going closer toward the right upright. And if you look a lot of the times when he kicks those balls, they're so high in the air because his leg is so strong, it's going over the top of that right upright, which is a field goal. He's owed 6 points on the season. So, in pass protection, identifying potential pass rushers on each play is the job of the quarterback in the center. Like I said, the center helps to call out the blocking assignments for each play. They will use hard counts to identify what players may be trying to blitz on any given play. Using hard counts is when you'll hear them come up to the line and go, hot, 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 or especially when they're trying to pull them off sides like a 4th and 1. That hard count is a cadence that the quarterback uses by influxing their voice throughout the game for different calls to try to get those defensive linemen to cheat. Also, what the quarterback may use to identify who's blitzing, who's not, and what type of defense they are is the use of that shift of motion, like using Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie, because if a defensive player travels with a player, you know they're in man defense. If a player travels and the defense shifts as a unit, you know they're in man coverage. So that tells the quarterback, okay, if they're in man, that means that no one's going to be looking at me when my receivers go down the field so he can run. If they're in zone, that means he's going to have pockets and windows in the defense that will be open because when you're not playing man-to-man, you have these different areas, especially depending on what you're playing on the back end. And that's going to be a 3-0. That's going to be a 301 class that I'm going to get into defensive schemes and how they block and how they do that. So it's going to be the kind of cat and mouse game will be 303. So stay tuned for that for next fall. So pass protection is not allowed to pass the line of scrimmage until after the ball is thrown. If especially you see that the NFL has adopted a lot of the college game, which is that run pass option, where on any given play, the quarterback is allowed to potentially hand the ball off or throw the ball depending on a player they're keying on, especially like a linebacker. They might be keying a specific linebacker. So depending on what he does on that play, if Josh Allen is doing that run pass option, he goes to hand the ball off to Devin Singletary, and he sees a middle linebacker cheat up on that play fake, they may be having a Stephon Diggs or Cole Beasley running a route right behind him. So when he bites up, that allows Josh Allen to pull that ball out quickly and throw it behind him into that open area in the zone. So, but in plays that, especially if the offensive line, it happened a couple weeks ago, the offensive line thought it was going to be a run play. So they ran block, they kind of got out in front of everything, and then Josh decided to throw it, and they gave us an illegal man downfield. So what happened was, because they thought it was a run play, they went and engaged downfield with the run block. When Josh threw it, they were too far downfield, results in a flag, redo the play, 5-yard penalty. Okay. And like I said, those penalties happen to tend on plays that involve those run pass options or broken plays, especially like if Josh gets flushed out of the pocket, he starts rolling to the right, like he always does, toward that sideline. He's looking downfield for a player. If a lineman starts to run downfield thinking he's going to run for the ball and he throws it, same thing. That broken play, even though he was still trying to complete the pass down the field, if the lineman does go past the line of scrimmage, they are eligible to get that illegal man downfield penalty. So this is a picture of Kirk Cousins and the pocket. So you see here, this yellow line is pretty much that pocket that I was talking about. So you have a double team on the right-hand side of the line, which is left-hand side of the screen. The guard and the tackle are taking that player, that defensive end. You have the center taking this player, and then you have your left guard and your left tackle with their individual man assignments. So I can tell you this right now. These guys right now are playing most likely a zone defense. As you can see, both your linebackers are sitting in the middle of the field. One of these guys may be covering a zone to follow this. So wherever this especially because they're in zone, if this running back was to go right or left, if he goes right, 54 is going to take him. And if he goes left, number 50 is going to take him. But as you can see, this is what they call a clean pocket. It's a full horseshoe. There are no rushers behind them, and there's no one coming up the middle to break that pocket. I'm going to go back to the Rams game this year. The second half of the Rams game, Josh Allen very rarely had a clean pocket. What they were doing was they were blitzing the outside, but with Aaron Donald being so good in the middle of the defense, the outside was able to hold, and by breaking that pocket down, by coming in the middle, it doesn't allow the quarterback to step up in the pocket. Like you'll hear them talk on the broadcast all the time. Oh, he's got to, especially if it's a nice throw. Oh, you see him here. He evades the pressure by stepping up into the pocket. That pocket is usually depending on the drop of the quarterback. And it depends on the routes of the play. You have a 3 or a 5-step drop. A 5-step drop, you're almost 5 to 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So by stepping up in the pocket, when the pressure comes to the outside, it allows you to buy yourself that extra time to make the throw. When you have that broken pocket coming up, if it's coming up the middle, then and if it's coming around the sides, you're not able to escape. So that's when you see a lot of sacks happen, when you have that breakdown of the pocket, not only from the center, but from the sides as well. Run blocking. So one type of run blocking is called zone blocking. This means that offensive linemen move in a certain direction and maintaining their block, and then the running back chooses the hole to run through. A lot of the times you see teams, they'll say if they run a heavy zone scheme, or if they actually play a scheme where they actually want the running back to hit the holes. What the zone scheme does is it allows your team to kind of shift the blocking one way or the other, whether you're running left or right. But then, like it says, it allows the running back to kind of choose the hole that's manufactured from the blocking in that play. So it's allowing the defense to do what they're going to do, blocking it correctly, and then finding the weakness on that side for the running back to advance the ball. The next type of run blocking focuses on gaps. I'm not a big guy, but when I was little, I played center in football. So when you're the center, like I said, you're the quarterback of the offense. So the way it works is all the holes that a running back will run through are numbered. So your weak side holes, so if your quarterback is a left-handed quarterback, your weak side would be the left-hand side of the center. If your quarterback's a right-handed thrower, the right-handed side of your line would be your weak side. So usually for the weak side are numbered 1, 3, 5, and 7 are odd numbers. Your strong side holes are usually labeled with even numbers, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And usually, depending on your offensive scheme, The zero gap is right up the center. So a QB sneak would be a zero call. So just to illustrate this, so the picture on the left are your holes. As you see, your weak side, 1, 3, 5, and then 7's kind of each outside that. So if the tight end was on the left-hand side, you would have 7 out there. But because the tight end's on the right-hand side, you have 2, 4, 6, which is right off the tackle, and then 8 is that outside of the tight end, which in that case, if we had that guard pulling, would be where they're sealing the edge there. That's what the edge they would seal. If they're calling a run to that 8 hole, trying to get outside of all the defenders, that's where they're going to seal the edge to go around. On the right, that is a zone blocking concept. So you have your linemen with each of their blocking assignments, but you see they're all running to the right. Your quarterback has his handoff lane. You have F, which is the fullback, and then you have the H, which is your halfback or your tailback. That would be your Devin Singletary or Zach Moss. As you can see, where you could this line has him going outside of that tight end. But if you look, they have that dotted line saying that depending on where the hole comes, he is going to break that run through one of these gaps based on the blocking scheme, or who is blocked, or who comes and doesn't come in run defense or run support, or they could be run blitzing. So depending on how the play is blocked up, everyone's going to block to the right on this play. But depending on where the running back sees the gap is where they're going to plant their foot in the ground and cut back. Okay, so a little bit more on run blocking. On runs that are outside the defensive ends, which is technically your tackles or your tight ends, because what happens is those defensive ends want to be as far out as the offensive line. So the defensive ends want to be, so if you have a tight end on one side, that defensive end is going to light up on the tight end. If on the next play there's only a tackle, the defensive end is going to line up on that tackle. So it's the defensive ends are kind of key for some aspects of running. So on runs that are outside the defensive ends, a lineman or two may be asked to pull to that side that the ball is being run to. We talked about this, the run blocking and pulling. The backside guard or tackle, so if you're running to the right, it would be the left guard. If you're running to the left, it would be the right guard or tackle, will be asked to pull, and in which case he becomes the lead blocker to seal the edge for the running back. That lineman's job on that play is to make sure that any defensive pursuit is blocked, allowing an outside lane to be open for the running back. The success of this plays depends on the ability of the non-pulling lineman to down block the defensive lineman. If the player misses their down block, it could allow for that running back to be tackled in the backfield. A lot of the times on the broadcast, when a guard is pulling and a running back is tackled in the backfield by a defensive tackle or defensive end, you'll hear the term or the phrase, he got right in his hip pocket and fouled him to the ball. What that means is that the down blocking assignment was missed by the center or the guard or whoever was supposed to block him. And what that defensive player did is got right in their hip pocket. They followed the pulling lineman to the ball is what exactly where it's going to bring you. And that's getting in that hip pocket. And that's exactly when you're pulling guards and tackles or centers, depending on where you're running, is those down blocks are crucial for the execution of that play. A missed down block will result in your running back being tackled in the backfield 70% of the time. I know our guys are pretty elusive, so that's why I said 70% of the time. But yeah, those pulling guards and tackles are excruciatingly crucial to make sure that that whoever has that assignment to pick up that man to down block gets there, because if not, you're probably looking at a 2 or 3 yard loss at least. So here's a little visual of it. So this is a game, I think this was an Auburn football game. So as you see here, on this play specifically, they have their fullback who's kind of in more of a wishbone set here, number 35. So on this play, you only have pulling 62 and 63. So what's going to happen on this play is 56 is going to take the guy to his left. 50 is going to take the guy to his left. And 73 is going to take the guy to his left. 35's responsibility is this defensive end right here. This gentleman whose number we can't see where kind of all my squiggly lines go to. That's that block right there is for number 35. So what number 63 and 62 are hoping to do is this linebacker and this is probably a safety who we just can see half their body on the top of the screen. Those two guys' sole responsibilities are to block that guy and that guy. What we're hoping is by the time those two guys are blocked, this running back only has probably a corner who has a wide receiver on him who's going to be blocking the corner. His sole job is to beat this guy in the middle of the field, the middle linebacker. If number 21 is clean and is able to get outside without any interference, he should be able to beat, because they sealed the edge, he should be able to beat his linebacker to that spot, and he should be running all day until he hits the end zone if it's blocked correctly. That's exactly what those pulling guards are doing. And like on this play, you see they're pulling each of the guards as opposed to pulling the backside players. So depending on the scheme, but you see how they have this tight end or this fullback standing up in the backfield? If he was on the line of scrimmage, then you would have him blocking the tight end. So everyone would be quote unquote blocking down. They're blocking down to the left because you're running out to the right. All right, defensive positions we'll move on to. Does anyone have any questions about the offensive line, run blocking, pass blocking, pulling, anything like that before I move on to the defensive positions?
We do have a raised hand.
Yeah.
Ryan, if we want to go to that.
Yeah.
Sergio, your hand is raised. So what I'm going to do is find you and request to unmute you. And then if you have your question, you can go ahead and state it if you want. You should have just gotten a request to unmute. So you can go ahead and do that if you want. We'll give you a couple seconds. If not, we can always revisit you at the end. Wow, he's deciding if he wants to unmute. Brian, I don't think you're trying to show with your mouse, but we can't see it if you're pointing it out, just so you know. Okay, Sergio, well, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was pointing with my fingers.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I'll mute you. Okay, all right.
So we'll move on to defensive positions now, which I got to minimize this so I can read it. So we'll move on to defensive positions now. We'll kind of get into what their roles are on the defense and kind of the different base formations of a defense. So defensive tackles. These players usually line up over the guards of the offense. So on the Bills, you would be talking about Harrison Phillips, Star Lotulelei, Vernon Butler Jr., Quentin Jefferson, and Ed Oliver. Those are your defensive tackles. They play over the guards. Depending on how wide the set is on the offense, they may be over the guards. Inside shoulder, which would be sitting over the between the guard and the center, or they may be playing outside leverage where they're lined up over the guard's outside shoulder, so they're playing between the guard and the tackle. The primary job of these players is to eat up blockers in the run game. So what I would say by eating up blockers is I like to use Star Lotulelei as a perfect example. And at the beginning of the year, you could see that the Bills defense was missing that presence of someone who's a bigger body who commands two people to block him on a specific play. By making two offensive linemen block one of your defensive linemen, you're freeing up a potential to blitz, whether you're run blitzing or you're pass blitzing. So that those defensive tackles are very key in making sure the effectiveness of your run defense or your pass defense to a certain degree, because what those tackles do, like I said before, is if they get a good push on a passing play, you're going to collapse the front of that pocket where the center should be blocking. If that collapses, that doesn't allow that quarterback to step up, and they have to evade out the sides, which hopefully by that time your defensive ends are getting there and are able to make the tackle. So you're kind of collapsing that whole pocket. So in a 3-4 defense, which I'll get into after I get into the positions, you may have someone called a nose tackle. This position usually is played in a 3-4 defense, like I said, in a 3-down lineman formation, but they usually line up right over the guard or right over the center. They play straight up. So they're face to face with the center on almost every single play. Depending on the weaker strong side of the play, they may shade on one of the center's shoulders, depending on where the tight end or the strength of the formation is. But they are predominantly over the center. So your defensive ends, this new term has come out over the past few years called, they're calling them edge rushers, especially in the draft, because I feel like when they call them an edge rusher, they're predominantly a blitzing and pass down specialist. A defensive end, I believe, is more all around who plays the run and passing downs. So that's just kind of a difference where I get, but they're interchangeable. Defensive end, edge rusher. An edge rusher could also be a linebacker or a corner. It's just where you're coming off the defense. So the defensive ends, edge rushers, these players line up over the tackles of the offense. Their primary job is to contain the running back, to knock it outside the defense in the run game, and then to collapse that pocket by applying pressure to the quarterback in the passing game. So especially when you have running quarterbacks, you'll hear about it with like when people play Lamar Jackson all the time. They'll be talking about the defensive ends playing quote unquote what they call contain. Works in the running game. What they're saying is they want their defensive ends to go upfield and pretty much contain anything that tries to run outside of them and push it back into the center of the field where you have more defenders. So whenever you hear them talking about trying to contain, that means that the defensive ends of the defense are trying to contain any run that comes to their side, whether it's by a quarterback or a running back on that specific play. On passing downs, you'll see them just come and rush the quarterback, most likely using a bull rush, which is just brute force, just pushing that tackle back into the quarterback and trying to swipe around. They may do a rip where they use their speed and kind of get into them with they use a rip move with their inside arm to rip up, like to kind of punch up into the air to shed those hands of the blocking tackle, so then they can kind of get around them and sack the quarterback. Our linebackers, depending on the defense you play and what defensive formation you're in a 4-3, you have 3 linebackers on the field. In a 3-4, you have 4 linebackers on the field. So linebackers are players that play at the second level of the defense. They are what helps create what they call the box. So if you ever hear the analysts or announcers on the TV say, "Oh, there's 8 men in the box," the box is the area pretty much from tackle to tackle, and then from like the line of scrimmage, like I would say 6 or 7 yards deep is the box. When you hear that there's 8 men in the box, most likely they're trying to stop a run because they're putting more people up near the line of scrimmage, hoping to get to that running back quicker. When you're playing a 5-man, 6-man, 7-man box, lesser boxes, you're either A, in a formation where you have a lot of wide receivers on the field, so they're spread out, so they have more defensive backs, or they're just not afraid of your running game because it's putrid. That's really it. So going back to the linebackers, these players are asked to cover and play sideline to sideline. So that's what they say, like, especially when you hear the analysts talk about, oh, this guy plays sideline to sideline. That means that he's quick, he's fast, because like I'm going to go back and talk about I'm trying to think of someone who was more of a thumper. Brandon Spikes. When Brandon Spikes played for the Bills, he is Takeo Spikes' nephew. When Brandon Spikes played for the Bills, he is more what I would call a run-stopping linebacker. He doesn't have the speed to cover sideline to sideline. He probably won't be on the field in passing sets. What his job is his job is to find out where the running back would be coming and try to fill the hole that the running back is going to be coming through. Those are your run-stopping defensemen. Our linebackers, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, are sideline to sideline linebackers. They can play every down, every package, every situation. They are what the new hybrid linebackers are probably going to look like coming out over the foreseeable future, with offenses playing in more spread out sets, passing the ball more often, trying to create mismatches. You will be seeing you're going to be seeing a lot more athleticism at the linebacker level. And I know a lot of colleges are taking bigger safeties and having them play big nickel formation, which is like a linebacker, also a cornerback, but also in some of the it's called the dime package. It's where you have a lot of defensive backs on the field, but they would play the linebacker in that situation because they have the ability not only to cover but also to blitz. Cornerbacks, that would be your Tre'Davious Whites, your Levi Wallaces, Dane Jackson, Josh Norman, Saron Neal plays it sometimes. Your nickel corner, you do have Taron Johnson. I said Saron Neal also does play some of that that nickel corner position. Cornerbacks are responsible for covering wide receivers on passing plays, maintaining the outside contain on running plays. And they play man or zone coverages depending on the defensive play. In man defense, you line up on a guy and that is your person. In zone is a little bit more nuanced. You have to be very good communicating to play zone defense well because everyone's guarding an area, and it takes good communication. And I'm going to use this term in order to pass off a player from one zone to the next. Because what happens is, and you'll see this a lot of the times, and I believe it happened on a play this past week with the Bills. And what happened was the defense was in zone, and they had Stephon Diggs running an out route, or someone was running an out route. And what happened was the out route was ran between the corner and the safety. And the safety on that play actually, I believe they were in cover too, was supposed to be covering anything deep. What had happened was that safety had bitten up on that out route, and they threw the ball right behind him for a long gain. So playing zone as a cornerback can be frustrating too, because to a certain degree you're blocking, you're with somebody, but if they break your zone or they cross zones, you really are supposed to, like Sean McDermott says all the time, do your 111th. That means you just stick in your zone. So you got to be able to pass that player off. So that takes us to the safeties. Strong safety, free safety. So your strong safety in the Bills defense is Jordan Poyer. You see Jordan Poyer coming a lot up, playing a lot on the tight ends. You see Jordan Poyer coming a lot up on blitzes and getting dirty in the run game, sticking his helmet in there on run plays. And then the free safety is Micah Hyde. He's your ball hawk. He's the last line of defense for your team on any given play. He quarterbacks the secondary. So when you're looking at the defense, Tremaine Edmonds is what they call the Mike. He's the player on the defense who is the only one who can communicate with Leslie Frazier. He gets the plays. He gets the front seven and the defense lined up with the play call. From there, depending on shifts, motions, things of that nature, Tremaine Edmonds and most likely Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to a certain degree, they communicate to make sure that everyone knows their assignment prior to the snap. So the defensive play is called in, depending on what's done, pre-snap motion, things like that. They will make checks at the line on defensively to make sure they're still aligned in the right set. And then the ball snapped and the play goes on. So like I said, the strong safety is usually known to be the run stopping safety. The free safety is usually the one who's that ball hawk, who is used to either double team an opposing team's top wide receiver, or on zone plays, pretty much reads the quarterback's eyes to see where he's looking to throw and kind of drifts that way. I think that we've seen Josh Allen this year be able to bait some safeties into throws that they think he's making with his eyes, and that little shoulder shimmy he gives as his pump fake. And I think so. So you really have to be disciplined, and I think that it's finally getting the recognition that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are probably the top safety tandem in the National Football League. What they're able to do, especially this is their fourth year with the Bills, what they're able to do pre-snap, moving around, they're able to fool a lot of quarterbacks into trying to think what they're doing, because they're able to disguise it with them moving around and things of that nature during the play. And they're pretty impressive too with some of their sets. Like I've seen Jordan Poyer come up to the line of scrimmage like he's blitzing and drop back into coverage and intercept the ball on the same play. So to cover that much ground that quickly, they're very, very disciplined, and they're masters of their craft. So base defense formations. So a base defense is determined by the team what they play. It could be a 3-4 defense, which means 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and then your secondary, your cornerbacks and safeties. A 4-3 is 4 down defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. That is the base defense that the Bills run, is a 4-3. But the Bills play a lot of nickel defense. What nickel does is it substitutes that third linebacker for what they call the nickel cornerback. The nickel cornerback on our team, like I said, is Teron Johnson. If he's hurt, then usually it's Saran Neal who plays that. That's number 24, Teron Johnson, number 33, Saran Neal. So that nickel formation has 2 linebackers, 3 cornerbacks, one of them being that nickel cornerback where you take that linebacker off the field in case of speed. So especially like if a team's playing like a 3 wide receiver set, you're most likely going to play nickel. And if it happens so the Bills play a lot of 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. It's a formation where you're going to want to play that nickel defense, because so by substituting that third linebacker for a third cornerback gives you more coverage speed, which also then one of your linebackers or safeties are going to take that tight end in coverage as their assignment. The dime, like I said, then takes another linebacker off the field and puts another cornerback or safety in coverage. Quarter, same thing. Quarter is pretty much, I believe, 3 down linemen, 8 defensive backs. It's pretty much what it is. A lot of the times when you hear the prevent defense, you're in quarter. You're just trying to not let anything get behind you in the quarter defense. So, like I said, most base defenses are a 3-4 or a 4-3. This is because the alignment of the team's front 7. The front 7 are your defensive linemen, your defensive tackles, your nose tackles, and your defensive ends and edge rushers, and your linebackers. So that makes up your front 7. So depending on your alignment, usually with a 3-4 base defense is called that because, like I said, they're 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, 4 defensive backs. 1 linebacker on every play is a pass rusher in the runner pass game. The defense tends to use more blitzes. So if you wanted to look at someone who used a 3-4 defense a lot, it was Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan uses the 3-4 defense for the fact that you can bring more exotic pressures with a 3-4 defense because of the speed you have on the field at the linebacker position. Those linebackers, a lot of times in that 3-4 defense, are defensive ends on the outside. So you're almost bringing 4 to 5 guys every single play. And what you'll see happen is you'll blitz one side and then drop a defensive end out in coverage. So it kind of works like that. A 4-3 based defense is called that because there's 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers. That's what the Bills use. The Bills actually do use a lot of nickel as well with Teron Johnson playing. The 4 down linemen are used to apply pressure in both the run and the pass game. A lot of the times if a team plays a 3-4 defense, they tend to be more blitz happy. They tend to blitz the quarterback more often. They tend to bring more pressure. They tend to want to speed up the internal clock of a quarterback in order to force him into a mistake. A 4-3 defense uses their 4 down linemen to apply that pressure while being able to cover on the back end. By what I mean by that is by being able to apply pressure with 4 down linemen allows you to cover more people in the field of play during any play. So if you're able to sack a quarterback by only sending 4 guys as opposed to sending 5 or 6, it really makes the offense have to beat you on every single play. It pretty much says that either your skill players or wide receivers, tight end, running backs are going to have to beat our guys, or we're going to sack you, or you're not going to have anyone to throw to because we have so much. You got to think about this too. So if you have 5 players on the offensive line plus the quarterback plus let's say a running back in, that's 7 players. You only have 4 players potentially running routes. If the running back releases, you have 5. But with this defense, you have 7 players in coverage. So if they're sending out 5 guys to run routes and you have 7 players, you can technically double team 2 of that team's players running routes and make them throw the ball where you want them to. A good example of this is it wasn't the fact that they were getting pressure on Ben Roethlisberger a few weeks ago. But what you saw was because of the way they were playing and able to get pressure there, Ben was trying to throw the ball quickly. And I also think that Big Ben's his arm is shot. He really can't throw the deep ball. He really doesn't have much zip on his passes anymore. But if you watched Teron Johnson on the play that he had that interception for a touchdown, he's reading his eyes, but he's also playing man defense there. And by being able to kind of play man defense and also be able to know where the ball is going, by forcing him to throw where you want him to by your coverage, it helps you. And if you look at, I want to say it was probably after, I can't remember. I want to say it was after the Kansas City game. The defense really turned it on. The defense started bringing more pressure. They are blitzing more now, which is good to see. They are manufacturing pressure when they aren't able to, and they're also able to get home. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here's a picture of that base 3-4 defense. As you see, you have your 3 down linemen, your defensive tackle, who would be right over the center, or your nose tackle. Those are your defensive ends or edge rushers. Here you have your outside linebackers, your inside linebackers, your 2 cornerbacks, your free safety, and your strong safety. So a lot of these times, these outside linebackers will be playing closer to the line of scrimmage, or you'll send 2 guys up to give the illusion of pressure. So by bringing guys up and filling these gaps on a play, you're really going to you're trying to keep the quarterback guessing who's coming. And I think that if you looked at it last week in the, I'm sorry, I went to the, go back. If you look last week in the Miami game, Miami in some plays were putting 8 guys on the line of scrimmage. What they're doing is they're trying to keep Josh Allen guessing on who is actually blitzing on that play. But by doing so, you are sacrificing where your players need to be in coverage. Don't get me wrong, these are some of the best athletes in the world. But to cover 10 yards when someone on the other side of the ball runs a 4.340 or a 4.540. By adding that extra yard, you're also adding space. So you're really hoping that the illusion or you're trying to make that quarterback hesitate for that extra split second or that extra second to regather himself to realize what the defense is doing after the ball is snapped, which I believe Josh Allen this year has done a great job pre-snap, recognizing where the pressure's coming and being able to alter the play. I don't know if you've heard him audible. I know he threw one to John Brown for a touchdown. I can't remember who he threw a couple of them, but you'll hear him say golden one, golden one. If the defense is in like a pressure situation where they're bringing a lot of people up to the line of scrimmage to blitz, he'll call that golden one, and that's a screen pass to John Brown. There's boom right there, and usually he's playing in the slot, so it's a quick throw, and because the pressure's coming, they're able to get behind that pressure very quickly. 4-3 defense. So on this defense, you see you have your two defensive tackles. So your center would be here. So they're lined up over the guards. Then you have your defensive ends, who the tackles would be they'd probably be shading outside shoulder. So that means that they're inside. When I say shading outside shoulder, it's all about the way you line up. So if you're shading someone's inside shoulder, you're lining up on their inside shoulder. If you're shading their outside shoulder, so that means like if Jerry Hughes was shading outside, that means that his inside shoulder would be lined up with the tackle's outside shoulder. If he's shading inside, his outside shoulder would be shading the inside of that lineman's shoulder. So then you have your linebackers, which these would be outside linebackers, but this guy in the middle is your inside or your middle linebacker. Also, what they would do is this would be your Mike, this would be your Sam, and this would be your Will. What that means is your Mike is your middle linebacker, your Sam is your strong side linebacker, and your Will is your weak side linebacker. The weak side linebacker, your will always line up where on the side of the formation where the tight end is not. So if the offense was here and the tight end was playing this side, he would be your Sam, your strong side. The strong side follows the tight end. So if that tight end came in motion, these two linebackers wouldn't switch, but their job assignments would. So that would be that check as this person's coming in motion. Say they were doing a weak side blitz where tight end comes in motion, sits here. These guys check, they switch. This Sam linebacker here would then be blitzing the weak side. Defensive line stunts. So just like you have your stunts and pulls and run blocking on the offensive side of the ball, the defense has stuff that they do as well. So the first stunt I'm going to talk to you about is a twist. What the twist does is it's a scheme or a stunt done by both sides of the line, left and right. So you have your tackle and your end doing a stunt. In this case, on the left-hand side of your screen, this defensive end is crashing down on the guard. By doing so, what the hope is that the tackle here is going to come down and block this end, but also what they're trying to do is they're trying to make this guard engage him too. So by doing so, that would allow this tackle to come outside unblocked to bring the pressure at the quarterback. So by coming down this way, this tackle is going to try to block down. This guard, with the rush coming at him, they're trying to make him forget his assignment is here. And what will happen is he will blitz down or rush down, and this guy will kind of take a step back and come around. So if he's able to hit here, and this is his assignment, this tackle, he's going to block down to get this guy. So it forces that guard to make a decision on whether he's going to allow that guy to keep running, because if he doesn't touch him, he might go free because of the block down. But this nose tackle is coming around the other side. Same thing here. This tackle now is crashing now. So this would be the strong side of the formation because you have your Y here, who's your tight end. So what's happening here is this tackle right here, this is his assignment right here. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to come on the outside of this tackle to make this guy try to come get him, which would then force this tackle, whose whose blocking assignment is this end. So when he comes into the center here, or comes around him, that this guy is already trying to get down. So then this guy who's trying to block him, so they kind of cross each other's paths, and it allows for a free rusher to come. Most likely on this play, though, depending on what you're coming with, you may be sending one of these linebackers, this Mike or this Will. Here's your strong safety here, most likely covering the tight end, your corner. This is your weak side. This is so this is your weak side linebacker. So that's the twist. The next one is called a slant or a crash or a collapse. So what you see here is you have your same setup, your down linemen. So they're in a 4-3 right here. So what you see happening here is everyone's kind of running, crashing, collapsing, slanting to the right. What the hopes is here is to catch someone crossing their assignments again. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to take this end this way, that's the tackle. We're going to take this nose tackle or this other tackle this way, that's the guard. What we're hoping to have happen here is by coming across this center, we're hoping that these two players engage this tackle. This end will be coming down this way, slanting in, hoping that the tackle comes down to block the end, which then if you're sending your Mike or your middle linebacker, as you can see, he's coming free to either stop this running back, or if it's a run play, if the running back stays in the block, he's going to come around and then blitz the quarterback, or depending on if they're in man or zone, he may be coming on a straight edge blitz right around toward the quarterback. But by getting everything to slant one way, you're trying to disrupt their pass protection by making them try to figure out who they're blocking. But by bringing this delayed pressure of the middle linebacker, you're hoping that he comes free and is able to hit the quarterback. Penalties. Everyone's least favorite thing in football. Penalties. Throughout every football game, there are penalties called, some on offense, some on defense. Some of these penalties occur what they call pre-snap, which would be a false start. It could be a too many men in the huddle on offense. It could be, I'm trying to think, the illegal motion play will usually get a flag before the play and they may stop it. Then you have things that happen during the play, holding, defensive holding, pass interference. You also have illegal man downfield, face mask, horse collar tackle. Then you have stuff that happens after the play. And most likely if it happens after the play, it's unsportsmanlike conduct. It's just usually how it happens. Depending on when the penalty occurs may affect when and how the penalty is enforced. Offsetting penalties occur when both the offense and defensive team has a player that commits a penalty. At this point, the down is replayed as if the play never occurred. So, interestingly enough, a few weeks ago, we had something that I never knew happened. So, on a specific play, the Bills there were two flags on the play. I believe it was a false start or an illegal formation penalty on the Bills. But on the play, there was also a flag thrown on the defense for roughing the passer. Roughing the passer is an unsportsmanlike conduct. So, if you have a regular penalty being offset with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, the regular penalty that is not unsportsmanlike conduct is negated. And what is enforced is the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So that was the reason why the Bills on that play didn't get penalized and were actually given a first down. So in that instance, that is the only time where if there are two penalties called on the same play, that one of the penalties is enforced. So, with that being said, pre-snap penalties. Offside is a pre-snap penalty. This occurs when a defensive player is lined up in the neutral zone, which means that the player is lined up on the line of scrimmage. The line of scrimmage is what I would call it's called the neutral zone because there should be no one on the line of scrimmage. The only thing that should be on the line of scrimmage is the ball, because that establishes the line of scrimmage. Because if the offensive linemen were lined up on the ball itself, they'd be offside as well on the offense. But it'd also be a legal formation. So the neutral zone when the ball is at. Sometimes when a player is deemed to be offsides, the officials will allow a free play to happen, in which the result of the play, if negative, will be negated by the penalty. For instance, you'll always hear the announcers call it when there's an offsides on the defense. They'll say, "Oh, they called him offsides. It's a free play." What that means is, even if the offense turns the ball over on that play, they know that because the offside flag was thrown at the beginning of the play, it's going to be negated and they're going to be gaining 5 yards on the play if it's a bad play. If it's a good play, you can always decline the penalty and take the yardage, so to speak. Coaches get weird with that too, because if you do gain the ball, if let's say you gain 6 yards or 8 yards on first down and you decline the offsides penalty, if you decline the offsides penalty, depending on the situation of the game, the clock does continue to run if you decline that penalty due to the fact the play was had. If you accept the penalty and take the 5 yards, the play clock does not start until the snap of the ball, or the game clock does not start until the snap of the ball. Encroachment. Encroachment occurs when a defensive player comes through the neutral zone and touches an offensive team player prior to the snap of the ball. You don't really see that much anymore because it's more of the neutral zone infraction. But prior to the neutral zone infraction, you would see that encroachment is where if a quarterback uses a hard count cadence to try to draw them off sides, and a lineman comes through and touches the center or something like that, then that's encroachment. It's a 5-yard penalty. Neutral zone infraction. A neutral zone infraction is when a defensive player comes across the line of scrimmage prematurely that causes an offensive player to move. This was a rule that was put into place, I want to say like 5 years ago, that because I think that what was happening was you would have a player jump off sides and then get back, but then an offensive player would move without being touched, and they would call it a false start. So this was put into effect in order to kind of stop that jumping off and getting back. And then if a player was to move to get ready to defend on the offensive side of the ball, they were getting hit with that false start penalty as opposed to having it be because they were being quote unquote baited to move. Too many men on the field. This happens. So if there's too many men on the field on defense, that's especially when they're substituting players. You'll see them, like if they substitute late, you'll see a quarterback try to snap the ball quickly in order to get that penalty. But if there's 12 men in the offensive huddle, there's a flag thrown on that too, and that's prior to the snap of the ball. Oh, there it is. Yep, 12 men in the huddle. This occurs when the offense has 12 men in the huddle. Illegal procedure. We talked about this earlier. This is typically when the offense has a man in motion and does not set his feet for 1 second prior to the snap, or when the motion person proceeds toward the line of scrimmage. Also, it can be called if 2 men are in motion at the same time. So I believe a few weeks ago, maybe a little over a month ago, it was at the end of a game. Stephon Diggs was kind of gingerly jogging back to the line of scrimmage. Josh snapped the ball. Stephon Diggs got back, but wasn't set for a full second before the ball was snapped. They flagged us for illegal procedure for not having him set. So that's that. Also, like I said, if someone comes in motion and proceeds toward the line of scrimmage, that is also a illegal procedure. And then, like I said, if two men are in motion at the same time, that's a legal procedure. False start. False start occurs on an offensive player prior to the snap of the ball. Usually it's an offensive lineman. You may see a wide receiver should never do it because they're looking for the snap of the ball. Maybe a running back, maybe a wide receiver or a tight end. Illegal formation. Like I said, illegal formation typically happens when a lineman, tight end, or wide receiver is not aligned correctly. Like I said earlier, there needs to be 7 players on the line of scrimmage on every play before the snap for the offense. If there are too many men on the line, which is meaning 8, if they cover that tight end, there's a flag. If there aren't enough people on line of scrimmage, let's say that the non-tight end side wide receiver stays off the ball on accident, that's also a penalty for illegal formation. Delay of game. This occurs when the quarterback fails to snap the ball prior to the play clock running out. So whenever there's a change of possession, or like to start a drive, the team gets 25 seconds on the play clock to run the play. If it's during a drive, and so let's just say we run the ball on first down, the team is allowed 40 seconds in between plays being run. That's why a lot of the times when you see a team who's up a lot of scores toward the end of the game who may be running the ball, you'll see them take that play clock down to 2 seconds, 1 second before they snap the ball. The reason being is on 3 plays, if you get 40 seconds between the play, that's a minute and 20 seconds. Or no, that's 2 minutes. So if you get 40 seconds, that's 2 minutes of game clock you can run down on a 3. If you go 3 and out, on 3 plays, you can take up to almost at least 2 minutes off the clock. Then you have to factor in the plays themselves, usually 5 to 7 seconds per play. So in a 3 and out drive toward the end of a game, if there's no timeouts left, you could run potentially 2.5 minutes off the clock before giving the ball back to another team if you are working the play clock, as they do say. So situational awareness for penalties. I know Bill Belichick last season did this thing where he took a delay of game penalty to move his punter back, in which the other team declined to not give him the advantage, and I believe he was able to run like all the time off the clock for that. Plus, it was declined, so when they blew the whistle, the play clock started again. So he got to run like an extra minute. An extra minute and a half off the clock before snapping it. But they did switch that rule in the offseason. But depending on what's going on in the game, such as score, time remaining, timeouts remaining, on top of a plethora of other factors, may help determine whether a penalty is accepted or not. On offense, a penalty on the defense may be accepted on a previous play that had no gain or negative gain in order to advance the ball and potentially reset the downs. I think I talked about it earlier. So let's just say on offense, a player comes off sides. And they call that free play. Aaron Rodgers is well known for doing it too with his hard count as well. So when you get that free play, you may throw a deep ball real quick, hoping to get yards or a touchdown. But if it's intercepted, you know that at the end that you're going to at least gain those 5 yards for the offsides. On offense, a penalty such as defensive pass interference, holding, or even offside may be declined due to the result of a play being more positive than the yardage gained via accepting the penalty. Especially on defensive pass interference, if it results in a touchdown, if the ball is caught, defensive holding, if there's holding on a play, but you still gain yardage, or even offsides, if you have a play that gains yardage, you may not want to take the penalty because the result of the play was better, especially if it results in a touchdown. I think there were a couple of times this year where we had penalties or touchdowns on penalties where you just decline it and you get the points. So situational awareness, or even like, or look at like I was talking about Bill Belichick. So you'll see coaches, like, especially if they're driving the ball, and let's say the drive stalls at the 50-yard line. You'll see that team take that 5-yard penalty to give their punter more room to put that ball closer to the opposing team's goal line. So there are times that you take penalties to take them too. So for the situational, what's going on for that specific time in the game. This is situational awareness continued. On defense, the same reasons occur on accepting or declining a penalty. When the offense commits a penalty, the defense may or may not accept the penalty based on the outcome of the play. For instance, let's just say it's a passing down and there's holding on the play, but you sack the quarterback. Let's just third down, for instance, and there's a holding call on the play, and the quarterback gets sacked, or the ball thrown is incomplete. The defense might decline that holding penalty in order to take the sack loss yardage, or in the instance of an incomplete pass, they may decline that penalty because it's going to be fourth down, or it advances the downs with no yardage gained. Like I said, if a QB sacked on third down while there's a holding penalty, the team may choose to decline the penalty, so the down advances to fourth down in the punt. A penalty committed by the offense may be accepted when the offense commits a penalty on a play that was positive, for instance, like holding, for instance, especially if it's holding downfield. What happens is, depending on where the holding foul occurs, they back it up 10 yards. So I want to say it was last week or 2 weeks ago, the Bills on a first down play had a really, really nice long run. But there was a holding call on the play. And instead of being 1st and 20, the Bills started off at 1st and 13. The reason for that is because that penalty occurred 7 yards down the field. So what they did is they enforced the penalty from the spot of the foul, so they started 1st and 13. So instead of having a first down for the Bills, they accepted the penalty, starts 1st and 13. Like I said, it could be holding, illegal man downfield, or even offensive pass interference. What happens on offensive pass interference is, you'll hear it all the time, that the offensive player pushed off of the defender in order to create the separation to catch the ball. That is a 10-yard penalty, and that is enforced from the previous spot of the ball, which means where the ball was snapped. So with that being said, that would be, so then let's just say it was 2nd and 10, you get your penalty, it's 2nd and 20 because it was enforced. Like I said, you may see a defense declining a delay of game penalty on 4th down when a team is punting, so the punter has less room to work with. Exactly what I was saying. So there goes that gamesmanship between the coaches and offense and defense. So that is the last slide. I know we're a little bit over now, but if anyone does have any questions, I am more than willing and ready to answer anything you guys have in terms of what was gone over in the presentation today. If you do have questions about playoffs and how those are going on, I am more than ready to answer your question.
Ryan, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have Mary Lou, who says, yes, explain the playoffs. If we lose on Saturday, are the Bills out?
Well, they're not going to lose, so you don't have to worry about that, Mary Lou. But yes, if the Bills were to lose on Saturday, they would be out. It is, the NFL did expand the playoffs this year, of course, after the Bills are now making the playoffs on a more regular basis. They did expand it to 7 teams. So with the expansion of 7 teams, what they did was they only are allowing the number 1 seed in each division to get a bye. In prior years, it was both the first and second seed that would get a first round bye in the playoffs. With the expansion of the playoffs, unfortunately, the Bills finished in second this year in the division, which means, or in the conference, which means that they do get to host a playoff game this week. When they win this week, they will be hosting a playoff game next week. So, with that being said, depending on the outcome of next week's games, if Kansas City is to lose next week, and when the Bills win next week, that means the Bills will host the AFC Championship game at Bills Stadium in Orchard Park. If Kansas City wins, they will travel to Kansas City to play that AFC Championship game.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Hope that's the case. We'll just wait a couple more seconds here to see if anyone else has any questions. Otherwise, I know I took a lot of notes that I'll be referring to tomorrow. Nothing's coming through that I'm seeing.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely night. Stay safe and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.